All right, good morning. Welcome again to those of you that are here in Phoenix with us. We're very, very glad you're joining us. For those of you that are new, we're glad you're here. For those that are watching us any way you found us, we're glad you're joining us today too. If you don't know this, the goal for this Bible study is for people to be able to watch Bible study anytime, anywhere, so you don't actually have to be here in person, even though we like to have you here. It's super fun. Here's a couple ways. Online, womensbiblestudy.com. You can get today's lesson, of course you know that. You can get past lessons, past guest speakers. If you have an app, we have a Women's Bible Study app for your telephone or your whatever device, Android, Apple, Windows, whatever. You can download our app and watch us that way. We have a Roku channel. If you have a Roku box, we're on YouTube, and you can also podcast now on iTunes. Not really sure how that works, but if that made sense what I just said, then it makes sense to you. So, all right, two things that pushed us to bring Abby in today, because like I said, she was not even on the schedule to bring her in, but because we've been working through the book of Acts, that's one reason. But the main reason is because so many of you have lost people. You've lost someone dear to you, and being up here, it's frustrating to not know how to come alongside of you and to be there for you and to help you through your grief. So I look out and I can just point all the people who have just lost. It could be a child, a parent, a friend, a brother, a sister. It's just everywhere right now. And it throws you into this time period of grief that we really, really want to help you get through today. And I think when something like that happens, the first question is, God, why would you do this to me? Why would you let something like this happen to me and to my life? And I don't want this. That's the main reason why we brought Abby in. But the second reason was really because we've been seeing in the life of Paul in Acts that all this tragedy happens to him. And it is constant and it never stops. And yet the coolest part about Paul is that he never gives up. He never gives up on his faith. And that is my goal for this whole session with Abby, that no matter what you're going through, whether you've lost someone or you've lost a job or you've lost a dream or you've lost something, I want you to never, ever walk away from your faith. So we have Miss Abby Rike. Please come up, and she will be here to share her amazing story with us.
Good morning. Oh my goodness, it's so good to be in Phoenix. Though I do feel like people lied to me. They said it was dry heat. Do you see my hair? I was really looking forward to dry heat and pretty curls, regardless of the humidity that I've brought with me. From my accent, if you can't tell, I am from the great state of Texas, who now is a transplant in Nashville, Tennessee. Tennessee is? Yes! It really is such an honor to come and get to tell my story. Lisa has shared with me some of your stories. But the truth is, I've been telling my story for 10 years now. And what I've learned is everywhere I go, everybody has a story. Everyone sitting in this room, you have a story. And so I think it's really important that we start sharing our stories, whether it be on stages that people bring you into, or whether it be with your neighbor or your family or your friends. Because at the end of the day, it may be my story, but it's really the hero is that God is that big. So, how I ended up here in Phoenix with bad hair this morning. For those that you don't know, 10 years ago, I was on this crazy reality TV show called The Biggest Loser. Yes. Anybody in here lost weight before? Anybody gained some weight back? Oh, my people. My people. But I can tell you, when I grew up in my small Texas town and Mrs. Taylor asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was not on a television show for morbidly obese people. But the truth is that my life didn't turn out as I thought that it would. Anybody else in here have a little touch of that? You thought life would turn out one way and it turns out another. So I was a high school teacher. I team taught with my husband, Rick. We loved what we did. I had the most beautiful 5.5-year-old daughter by the name of Macy. She could tell you that the leader of South Korea was Roh Moo-yeon while turning a cartwheel. And then we had Caleb, our 9.5-pound, blonde hair, blue-eyed son, who just completed our family. I drove a minivan and I went to soccer practice and I thought I had the greatest life of all time. I wanted the life that I had. And then on October 13th, 2006, a man going over 100 miles an hour hit my family head on, and I was told that there were no survivors. And I'm going to tell you, on that day, I thought it included me too. Because how does one get up from that? When your identity and who you are and what you want is wrapped up, and in the blink of an eye, life changes. But you see, I'd grown up in the church, and I always thought I had faith, right? I always loved Jesus. I believed in Jesus. But the truth was, I'd never really needed Jesus. I had the life I wanted. Really didn't need Jesus. I'd go to church on Sunday. That's cool, right? Thanks the Lord for all my good blessings. But then I found myself with a need. A need where I couldn't breathe. Ever been there? Where you don't know where your next breath is coming from? And so all of a sudden I had to question, is the God that I think I know everything that I think he is? And I can stand here today and tell you he is so much more. Because thank you, he is so much more. Because sincerely, if I can stand up here mid-hot flash with bad hair and have peace and joy in my heart, if that is possible, the same God that lives inside of me can live inside of you. Or he already does live inside of you, and the power is there. But grief is an ugly journey. It's not something that you just put on the happy face and pretend that everything's okay. It's a brutal process. And so after the wreck, keep in mind my son was 2.5 weeks old, so I was still on maternity leave. So following that, I took off until the end of January. I went back to school. I finished out the high school year. And then I decided I would get my master's degree because I was going to be busy, right? Anybody busy? Because if you sit too long, you think you're losing your mind. Well, then I did what, anybody does, is I ran away from home. And I ran to the booming metropolis of Houma, Louisiana. See, no claps there. Y'all don't know where that is. It's cool. So Houma, Louisiana is actually south of New Orleans. Yes, not in the water, but very close. So I had lived in Houma, Louisiana 10 years prior to the wreck, and I thought I needed a change of scenery. I needed a change of pace. But the problem is that I took myself with me. Anybody ever done that? So here I was in South Louisiana, and now it's time to get a job. So I apply. Now, I don't know if y'all are aware, but there is a little budget difference between Texas school systems and Louisiana school systems. Just a bit. So I went and applied, and of course, there were no cool jobs available. I was taught speech and theater, but there was a freshman English position. Now, y'all don't know me well enough to know I don't like freshmen, and I don't like English. So it was a perfect fit. So I show up in August in South Louisiana, and they do not even lie about that there is no dry heat. So I show up and I said, "Hey, Mr. Dane, I'm here to get the keys to my new room." And he said, "Oh, Abby, about that. You don't really have a classroom, but you do have your very own cart." So I would push my cart from borrowed classroom to borrowed classroom, and I would teach freshmen English. I can laugh about it now, but at the time I was not laughing. You see, they had told me that if I could just survive the first year of grief, if I could just survive that first year. How many first year of grief survivors do we have in here? Did y'all get your certificate in Gold Star? Because I did not get mine yet. And so I felt gypped. I thought I was supposed to be better, right? At the 1 year mark, you are supposed to feel better. And I didn't. And then I was in the 2 year mark, and I thought, someone has lied to me. Time has not healed the wounds. I may not be in that acute pain, but the dull ache was so real, and it was relentless. And I know that there are those of you in here today thinking, I get it. I get that dull ache. And so it was on February the 13th, 2009, that the Lord and I had a really long talk. And it wasn't that churchy kind. It was, "Lord, either make this better or take me home, because I can't live like this anymore." You see, I would look at myself in the mirror, and I didn't recognize myself because my eyes were dead. And I would get up every day and I would think, survive today, Abby. Just get your feet on the floor and survive today. And then the next day would come, and it was Groundhog's Day all over again. Get your feet on the floor and survive today. But you know what I've learned through my years of hearing your stories? There are way too many of us getting our feet on the floor and surviving today. And I'm going to tell you, my Lord does not want an army of surviving, existing the days away. He promises peace and joy despite the circumstance. And that night when I prayed out, I thought, I need a little of that. Anybody else could use a little peace and joy in the midst when the circumstances will not change. Is it possible? It is. Yes, it is. And so through a crazy, the Lord, he does have a sense of humor. And so I found myself standing on national television in a sports bra, spandex pants, with my weight blaring for all the world to see. And I don't know about in Phoenix, but in Texas, we don't tell our weight out loud. But I can tell you at that point, I was so desperate to feel better. And I thought maybe if I got healthy, right? So here I am, that knowing good and well, if I had worn that outfit to Walmart, I would have made their top 10. But you do it on national television, and people are like, you are an inspiration. The irony is not lost on me. No, it's not. So here I stand, and I look over, and just mere inches away from me is Allison Sweeney, okay? Again, now I'm from Texas, and so we watched our shows, growing up. And so all I could really think is, Sammy Brady is right there. But she was not Sammy Brady that day, and she says, Abby, your starting weight, 200. Now, that was in my head. She says, your starting weight is 247 pounds. Does that surprise you? Well, Allison, I said it surprises me, but it doesn't define me. You see, God love y'all. What a wonderful audience. Thank you. But on that day, the last thing I was worried about is what I looked like or what the scale said. I was fighting for my real life. And I can tell you that, yes, I am smart enough to know that I was embarrassed because I do have some pride, but I wanted to live again. And if it meant getting out of my own way, if it meant doing things that I never dreamt possible when God has opened this door, then I was willing to walk through it. Because that's the thing. There comes a point in the grief journey, and not in the very beginning, obviously, but there comes a point in the grief journey you have to decide, do I want to be healed? I wanted to be healed. And God in his graciousness sent me the sweetest, kindest, most gentle spirit. People always ask me, is she as mean in real life as she was? I said, oh, she is much meaner in real life. I love Jillian. I have to tell you, I grew to love her. I did not love her in the beginning, right? Let's keep it real here. And so I'm thrust on this show. And so I'd seen the show, but I wasn't an avid fan. And I thought, man, that looks really hard. It is. And so I found myself in the gym the very first day. And I thought maybe they'd ease us into it, right? Because they've told us we're not only obese, we're morbidly obese. Awesome. So I get on this treadmill, and I'm on there for about an hour and a half at an incline. Thank you. And I've seen her go to other people, and I am now terrified when I look over and I see her come for me. Abby, come here. I get off. She takes me to this hideous contraption I later learn is a Stairmaster. If you've never had the privilege, it is like an escalator that never ends. And I would have sworn to you I'd been on there about an hour and a half. She told me it was 5 minutes, but I think she lied. She takes me around. I do other hideous, sweat-inducing exercises till she finally tells me to come back to the treadmill and lay down. For that split second, I'm relieved. Not for long. You see, what she wanted me to do is she wanted me to hoist my body weight up 10 times. Now, I'm 247 and I'm sweaty. I gripped that thing with everything I had, and I managed to get up the 10 times. And in my mind, I'm thinking, did it. But then she wants me to hold it for 10 seconds. Somehow, I managed to do it. But then she's going to see what I'm really made of, so she's going to stand on me. Oh. Regardless of how hard I gripped that bar, my hands would slip and I would fall. And I would grip again and I would fall again. And I was so mad. Anybody else in here, if you try really, really hard at something, you like to do it well? Anyone? Anyone? Me too. And anybody else in here that if you think you're going to try really hard and not do it well, you think, I'll probably pass. I'll do that next time. Yeah, me too. And so here I am lying in a pool of sweat, feeling like the absolute biggest failure of all time. Oh, and I was mad at her. How dare you make me fail? Do you not know what I've been through? But that's the beauty of perspective, right? That's the beauty of perspective. For a long time, I thought, man, this stinks. But the beauty of hindsight is that perspective that it gives you. And I realized that my best was not good enough that day. But if I would have never failed that day, I would never be standing here with y'all today. I'd have missed my life if I wasn't willing to fail. And because I'm a school teacher and I don't get to give assignments very often, y'all are the lucky recipient of the next assignment. In the next 2 days, I want you to give yourself the opportunity to fail at something. Y'all are looking at me like, right on, sister, I'm not doing that. In the next 2 days, I want you to give yourself the opportunity to fail, because what you're going to realize is that you're truly giving yourself the opportunity to live again. Because when it is so safe and there is no risk, there is no life. And God is not going to call you to where you're comfortable. He is going to call you out where it is grotesquely uncomfortable. And I want y'all to have a little dose of it in the next 2 days. Why in the next 2 days? Because if you don't do it, then you're not going to do it. So I really want y'all to do it. Some of you, I can tell you're not going to, but I'm hoping by the end, maybe. I have to tell you, as I've looked back through this journey, so it's been 12 and a half years since the wreck. It's been 10 years since I was on that crazy reality TV show. But I can tell you, after that show, that was whenever I started really living again. And I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. And I realized a lot that little girl, the way she lived was a great roadmap for the way I want to live. And I know everybody thinks their kid's the cutest and the smartest, but mine was. And so she was at Piper's birthday party, and everyone else, of course, was like wearing a ballerina outfit or a princess, but not my baby girl. She went for the royal purple disco gown to the ground, and then what outfit is not complete without a little animal print, right? And then she tops it off with her hot pink sunglasses. She laughed too loud and she hugged too hard, and she did more living in her 5.5 years than some people will do in 100. I don't care how old we are, if we're still taking breath, there is living to be done, and I'm not wasting a day. I don't want you to waste a day. And so some of these lessons that I learned is that feelings aren't facts. Feelings feel really real, don't they? Sadness, loneliness. Grief is very isolating. Very isolating. People don't know what to say, so they don't say anything. You're trying to just get your head above water. And so then you start, that's when I believe that the enemy just comes in and what I call earworms you with all these lies. You're always going to feel this way. It's never going to get better. You're never going to laugh again. You're never going to smile again. I'm living proof that's not the truth. Not the truth. And somebody in here needs to hear that. You will not always feel this way. Your circumstances may not change. That's not scriptural. It doesn't say pray hard enough and God will fix it right on up. Some circumstances never change, but you know what will change? You. We get to change. And we get to find peace in the midst when circumstances do not change. Take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. What does that look like? What does that mean? It means that years later, when I'm scrolling through Facebook and I'm watching all of Macy's classmates grow up, and I start having that season of, this stinks again. I am so sad. I don't want this life. And then I make it obedient to Christ that Macy is in the arms of Jesus. Caleb is in the arms of Jesus. Rick is in the arms of Jesus. And you know what? Macy could care less that she is not going to the first junior high dance. You care, but she's not missing it. It's you. And me having a pit pot party for myself is not honoring or glorifying God at all. And eternity is what matters and not a stupid junior high dance. And so I take that thought and I make it obedient to what is true. And it is a habit, and it is hard. But if you do not get control of your thoughts, grief will wreck you for the rest of your life, and you will miss out on the time that you have. And so I want you to take away, hashtag, wrap it up in truth. Everything we're talking about today is God's truth. Our truth doesn't matter. Our truth doesn't matter. The only truth that matters is God's truth, and that's what we're going to wrap it up in. What's really true. So that's going to be our hashtag, ladies. Hashtag wrap it up in truth. So that's our first lesson, is that feelings aren't fact, and they're fickle. Feelings, they change. So we're going to get captive of those. The second thing is that we are not victims. When we are in Christ, we are not victims. You are not a victim, and I am not a victim. I can't tell you how many people want to make me a victim. Somebody came and they killed your husband, your daughter, your son. You are a victim of a terrible crime. No, I refuse to be a victim. If we're victims of anything, it's the fallen world and sin in it. Okay? So I'm going to get a right perspective on that, number one. And the second thing is I'm going to cling to Romans 8:37. No, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. You see, the God that I serve has already won the battle. He's already won. I'm not fighting for victory. I'm fighting from victory. And so I will walk it out. I refuse to be a victim because whenever I am, it lessens what Jesus did for me. Is it easy? I am never going to lie to y'all. Grief is hard, and it is an ongoing process. And you will have days that on a random Tuesday, you'll be at the grocery store and see some Halloween candy, and it'll make you fall into a pool of tears. And then you go back through and you walk it out again. That the feelings will pass. You will not always feel this way. And that eternity is long. And this life is short. And we're going to wrap it up in truth. We're going to wrap it up in truth that we don't have to be victims, that we can walk in absolute victory regardless of what is going on in our lives. The third thing is we have got to be courageous. It takes a lot of courage to walk it out. Whew. That little kid right there, whew, dare to the devil, right? But I loved what she did. And so, as crazy as it seems, I'm probably one of the most private people you'll ever meet in your real life. True story. So why do I schlep around airports? Because it's not about me. It takes courage to tell the truth, but I'm scared to death. Every time I take this stage, I break out in a hot flash lately. I'm not even playing about that. Anybody else in that spot? But I go back to, is it the one that lives in me gives me courage? I don't feel courageous. I just want to be obedient. I don't really care if you feel courageous. I want you to be obedient. Your story can comfort somebody else. your story is going to glorify God, and that's why we share it. It has nothing to do with me, and it really has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with glorifying God so that more people know He is that big, joy is possible, and eternity is real. And I want us all to be courageous enough to take that step and to be bold in our faith. Because God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and a sound mind. And I'm going to tell you in the grief process, you will question that sound mind more than anything in the world. You will feel like you are losing your mind. When you experience that kind of loss and that kind of pain, you will think you are losing it. You're not. I promise. It is a natural part of the grieving process, and if you will take captive every thought, if you will walk in from victory rather than for victory, and you claim this verse every time, when it says take captive every thought, you quote that. God has not given me a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and a sound mind. And you repeat that over and over and over again until you believe it. So, the scariest thing I ever did was this crazy TV show, right? And you may think, well, Abby, didn't you have to apply for that show? I did. But, I mean, come on. I grew up in a town of 5,000 people. Nobody went on TV. I mean, now there are more people that have done reality TV than not at this point. But at that time, I'd never dreamed in 10,000 years they were going to pick me, right? It was something to do for a change of pace. And so I would apply and I would make it to the next round and I would think, ooh, I hope they pick me. And then I get to the next round and I think, ooh, I hope they pick me. And then all of a sudden I find myself in LA and I thought, oh my gosh, I think they're going to pick me. And I called my mother and I said, I've lost my mind. I am not doing this. Have you seen the outfit that they have to wear? But I'd seen enough of the show to know that I was not going to be able to fake fine anymore. Remember whenever I told you that I was really private? For years, nobody wanted to really talk to me, but they would pray for me and ask other people how I was doing. You know how people do. And anybody that really knew any real thing about me, the answer was, Abby is fine. Abby is fine. I wasn't fine. And I was so tired of pretending that I was fine. And I know that there's more than one of you in here that you are exhausted with fine. You get to be better than fine. You get to be better than fine. You get to know joy again, and you get to know peace again. It's going to take a lot of courage. And so here I am, and the scariest time ever was when my parents took me to the airport because I did indeed get picked. And as I'm sitting in the back seat of the car, and I'm having to reach for the door handle, I knew that my life was never going to look the same once I got out of the car. Everything about my life was going to change once I got out of the car. And it's very easy now to say, of course you got out of the car, Abby. I mean, look, you're doing so good because you got out of the car. When you take that first step out of the car, you have no clue what it's going to look like. I had no clue what my life would look like once I got out of the car. Thank God I got out of that car. But honestly, it doesn't really matter that I got out of the car. You know what matters? Is when God calls you to get out of the car and your heart is beating out of your chest and you feel like you really kind of want to throw up a little and you don't know how it's going to end. I pray all the time that you will get out of the car. I don't care your age, your stage, your circumstance, none of it matters. If you are drawing breath, you are still alive. Don't waste existing out another minute. This crazy scale, where I obviously have a very big mouth, it had nothing to do with the weight loss. It was a platform from which I could shout from the rooftops to, they tell me millions of people watch that show. It still blows my mind. But anywho, I got to say, you know what? God is that big. He is that big. And that's what we've got to wrap up in truth. Every single day, you're going to have a choice to make. And when you're in the thick of the grief, it may be every minute you have a choice. But you've got a choice. You can either believe God or you can believe your feelings. I don't have to tell you which one is going to make everything different when we believe God. Because you see, that's the thing. It's not just about our lives. We have this ripple effect on people by our choices. So if we let fear keep us from getting out of the car, it's not just us that misses out on life. So after I got home from Biggest Loser, I made this really sweet friend, Emily, and I thought, she is so nice and pretty and lovely. I really like her. I wonder if my brother would. He does. You see, he lived in the small Texas town, and she lived 7.5 hours away in Houma, Louisiana, and I got to introduce them, and I'd have missed it. Had I not gotten out of the car, I'd have missed it. And you know what else I would have missed? Those two sweet nieces of mine, Annabelle and Ellie. I can tell you, whenever I was contemplating whether or not I was actually going to get out of that car, it never crossed my mind that it would impact anyone but me. And I'd have missed it. And if you don't get out of the car, there are others that will miss it too. I am so thankful for blessings I never dreamt possible. I thought I would never know joy again. And I do. You know what else is a miracle? I got married 7.5 years ago. Can you imagine? I'd have missed it. I'd have missed it. And I'm going to tell you, I almost missed that because it's scary to love again. But I'm wise enough to know I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. TJ's not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. But you know what is guaranteed tomorrow? God still reigns. And I will not miss out on things because I am too afraid to live. I'd have missed it. I'd have missed it. If you're wondering what that is, that's my driveway. It really doesn't do it justice to hear anyone that's come up of it. They complain a lot about it being steep and scary. I personally say get over it, right? But the scariest thing, we out of nowhere, we did not know anyone, prayed about where we should be, and lo and behold, we felt the Lord moving us to Nashville, Tennessee. You know how many people I know there? None. You know how many family members I have there? None. I don't know if you can tell, but I really do like makeup and lipstick and Since my back injury, I can't really sport my heels like I want, but I do at least have the little heel on today. But you see, whenever I talk about God changing you, God changed me and the desires of my heart of what I thought I wanted. And I began praying, Lord, plant the desires of your heart in me and then grant me the desires of my heart, because I didn't know what to pray. And do you know how you answer that prayer? I'm a farmer. I am a farmer now, and I have fainting goats. Really? I mean, sincerely. But you see, whenever God moved me again out of my comfort zone where it makes no sense, and I would love to be able to wrap up Nashville in a beautiful package story for you. I can't, because I'm still walking it out. I don't know the end of the story other than I'm being obedient to the next thing. You have no idea what God has in store for you. It will not look the way that you think it will look. It will not feel the way that you wished it would feel a lot of times. But it will surpass anything that you ever thought possible. You see, on October 13th, 2006, I would have sworn to you I would have never gotten up. If I would have heard my story, there is no way I'd have been sitting in this audience today, because I didn't want to hear all that. When you walk through the grief journey and you begin moving forward, doesn't mean that you forget the people that you love. It is not that you've moved on. It is that you have locked eyes with Jesus and you are moving forward. You will move forward and you will honor and glorify him, because eternity is real. And you cling to this truth. Weeping may remain for a night, but joy comes in the morning. I thank y'all for being here with me this morning. God bless.